What's going on, folks? It's your boy again, Dr. Sean Thomas here, back in the building. Be More Today Show, episode number 97. We are 97 episodes in. Season 3 is here, and it has always been a blessing, this journey going with you, continuing to be more and inspiring others to be the best version of themselves. I just thank you for joining us every single week, every single Monday for our shows. It's been a crazy ride. We are now heard in 62 countries. We just passed 20,000 downloads. And for anyone who's heard the show ever, if you looked on YouTube, you've been on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, wherever you've been, I appreciate you. I appreciate your dedication to following the journey for Be More Today and what it is. And if you read my book or you listened to the podcast or did a workout with us, I appreciate you. And the Be More Today show will continue to push forward and continue to grow and inspire others to be the best version of themselves as well. So thank you for being part of the growth. It does not go unnoticed. And as always, for more information about us, BeMoreToday.com for all the things we talked about, including our swag store, which is open. And if you want to be more in that capacity, you can do that as well. My quote for today is simple, and it is by Kristen Femster, and it says, "No matter the person or the situation, there is always a beginning. A day one. Be courageous in starting over and trying again. This day could be the day that changes everything." And that quotation means a lot to me in various capacities. I really feel like each of us has had a second opportunity just to get things right? Whether you've been through COVID-19 the last 2 years and you recognize that you appreciate things a little more now because either you've been cooped up in the house or you had a job and you were furloughed, or you said, I have so much time now, let me go out there and start a new task, a new job, write a new book, do whatever. We've had an opportunity to do things new, to have new beginnings, to have new starts, new stops, like my book, right? Our Steps to Greatness. You've had an opportunity to do those things. And at day one, when we said, let's be courageous, let's start over and let's try things again. For those who were a part of the Texas incident that happened last week, I want to have a moment of silence because I think that we are also in a place where we can have a new start. As the father of a 7-year-old, my heart was crushed when I heard what had happened. And it just reminds us that even though we've been through the pandemic, even though we've been through so many things that continue to show us that humanity is so resilient, things like this happen. And it's time for us to have a new beginning, for us to start over and really look at the things to get things better for the next generation, for our kids and our kids' kids. We just can't keep doing the same thing, praying the same prayers. I'm all about those things. We also have to take some action, and we have to be better. So I just want to have a moment of silence, as always, for those who are involved in that shooting, the 21 people, 19 young people and 2 adults who passed away. Let's have a moment of silence for them as we continue to be more for them and more for ourselves as well. I appreciate you guys so much. Again, this show is not just about health and wellness, but it's also about people. And I think the best way for us to really talk about that is to be real. I love the show because we talk about positive things and we talk about the growth and journey that happens, but sometimes things don't go as planned. Sometimes things don't go the way that we had intended them to, but we learn from those things. We learn from our experiences. Even this Texas situation, we are learning from that we need to do things differently. And I'm someone who says, well, let me fail forward. Let me fail forward and find out what I have to do better. And the only way sometimes to do that is to fail forward and to recognize that in hindsight, 2020 is always great, but I can do things differently to make sure that I can be successful in the future. And I learned that at downstate when I was going to school. And I got to say, one of the teachers that helped me to recognize that it's not going to always be perfect, that you're going to have to go out there and trial and error certain things or try hard at certain things, was a teacher named Nisha Mathews. And Dr. Nisha Mathews is actually my guest on the show today. Now, let me give you guys a little preview of who she is, because she's many, many things. And she holds many, many, many hats. So she went to school in Madras, India, right? And she got her Bachelor of Physical Therapy in 2000, 2000. And she went on to get her master's and MG diploma in musculoskeletal physiotherapy at the University of Melbourne in Australia. And that was in 2002. And then went on to get her doctorate from Stony Brook in 2010. Now she's been everywhere. She is a clinician who has so many skills. She's worked with so many clinics, some in New York, some in Texas, where she is now, and she is highly decorated in so many ways. I would have the privilege to meet her when she was actually teaching at SUNY Downstate Medical Center, one of the best grad schools that I believe in New York, where she was my teacher for a number of classes. And she was an inspiration to me in a variety of ways, not just being a person of color in an environment that did not have many teachers of color, but also just being an inspiration and inspiring me to continue to pursue a program that, I thought I was too old to be in at the time. I thought I was smart, but there were so many other things that come with the program, not just being smart, but being efficient, being smart enough to recognize the best way to handle certain things, or the best answer to certain things, or the way to negotiate and differentially diagnose certain situations. She was so helpful and integral in terms of my growth as a student. And someone who was out of school for 4 years, going back to the school system, she helped that transition for me to be almost seamless. So I had to have her on the show today just to kind of highlight the thing that she's been doing, not just being a clinician around the world, but also being someone who's not just run clinics and taught in the classroom, but has just done so many things in terms of physical therapy and pushing the envelope, not just teaching, but also living that life. She's an athlete at heart. If you follow her on anything that you may see social media wise or what have you, she is always out there doing great things, from running and competing to showing her kids that she too can do exactly what they do, if not better. And I'm excited to have her on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, I can call her my friend because she is my friend, Dr. Nisha Mathews. Nisha, what is going on?
It's so good to be finally in face to face in a way with you, Sean, and thank you for the wonderful things you've said. Really touched my heart. When you are there in that time, in the moment, I didn't recognize or realize that I'd have that kind of an impact on you or any other student for that matter, but it's good to hear that, and I appreciate that. I'm happy to be here today, and hopefully I can give you some tips and insight into some things that I have experienced in my PT career.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. And I really feel like the um, respect I have for you is huge. And I've been following your journey. We had a chance to connect when we met in Brooklyn a couple of years ago, and actually you came to a workout we did also a couple of years ago, which was a lot of fun.
I had a
So
lot of fun.
yeah, it's much appreciated. And I've been following your journey, your story. I know you are living in Texas, and I don't want to harp too much on Texas, right? But I am curious, as someone who is down there,
Uh-huh.
I know what it feels like being up here, and I know the people who are responding to that being up here. But what's it like being in Texas right now? What's happening down there? Just in a couple words, if you don't mind sharing.
Um, there's a lot of collective sadness and frustration at repeat events like this, and when is some change going to really manifest? So collectively, I think I'm hearing a lot of people wanting something to change. There's still people that are slightly still, well, somewhat ignorant about the gun privileges, but for the most part, I think when you hear things like this, innocent little children being attacked, I think that's going to have to mean some change and some reform.
Yeah,
And hopefully something changes soon. And I think that is the sentiment of most Texans.
yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that that's the sentiment down there as well. I know I think around the world we are also feeling that same sentiment. Something has to change,
Mhm.
something, anything. And
Yeah.
the whole point of this show is just to really highlight what we can do to be better. And I do hope that also that we can get to a better place where just safety wise we can be, not to worry about our kids going places they should be going, just being able to go there and not have to worry or fear that they might not be coming home. So just grateful for life, as I'm sure you are too. And I want to have you on the show because to me, you are physical therapy. And, like you're like the embodiment for that for me. There are a couple people that I think people have as not mentors per se, but people that they look up to and they aspire to be. And you were always that person for me at school. So I'm always curious and have been curious about how this journey started for you. Because for many people, they have an injury or maybe something they're interested in doing in terms of sports. They may get into it, or someone in their family had something, but I never had really had a chance to ask you how you got involved in PT. And I know that a lot of students that, even people who apply to our job here, are from India. They come from India, and it's like a huge thing to study physical therapy or physiotherapy
Right.
in India. So, what sparked this journey or this interest for you to get into this amazing field?
Okay. Hope I don't disappoint you too much with this answer, but my journey into physical therapy began when I realized that I had to give up on a certain dream of becoming a medical doctor. And to make matters worse, I guess a lot of doubt. So that realization came because I succumbed to what family and friends kind of put in my mind at the time, that it's going to be time consuming, it's going to be a stressful life. I loved the idea of medical school because I loved to learn. And but it was a pretty challenging environment. Most everyone in India wants to be a doctor and engineer. So to get into those programs would be very challenging. And I attempted and I failed. And I had been familiar with my parents. My mom had therapy when I was growing up. And so she had said, hey, this is maybe a better alternative for you. This is still in the medical field and you have a work-life balance, maybe somewhat a better life, appreciation for time with kids and things like that, if you took this PT route. And come to think of it, now looking back, I'm happy I did, because it just aligns with who I am and aligns with my lifestyle, and I'm happy to still make the difference that I make in my community. And I'm very comfortable as a PT. Like I said, I studied PT in 3 different continents, and so I'm kind of very, very comfortable wherever you put me to do what I do and see people become better versions of themselves.
Yeah, I love it. We share a similar sentiment. I had high aspirations to be an MD.
Yeah.
Organic chemistry hit, and that was pretty much like, okay, I guess we're
Yeah.
not doing. But even to the last minute, I had an advisor in school that, I forgot his name, but he was like, "Yeah, you shouldn't apply to medical school. Like, you're not gonna get in." And I was like, "Oh, you don't know me. I
Right.
can do this." Looking at my GPA and whatever else, and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be fine." And I
Yeah.
definitely applied. I definitely took the MCAT. I didn't study for the MCAT. I just had all these aspirations of, oh, how hard can it be, And
Hmm.
I didn't put. I said I wanted it, but I didn't put the work I had to do to get it.
Right.
And
Right.
when I didn't get in, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess they were right. And
Right.
that's kind of how I got into it, because it was definitely trial and error. But
Right.
I do think for me, going through surgeries and recognizing that PT was a real thing and a very successful and productive thing, that's how I also reminded myself, oh, this profession is something that I can definitely do because I've already been through it. So
Right.
I don't, I think that we share that in common, and I'm grateful for that experience, because now that we can see that it's something that we actually do love doing, I
Right.
don't really see myself doing anything else. So
Right. Absolutely. Same
yeah,
here. I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. So listen, you've done so many things, right? You've been a teacher or educator. You've been a director, and continue to be a director, right? Uh, at Baylor, and
Currently.
you've also been a practice owner. What do you think is the most rewarding, and what is the most challenging aspect, do you think, of our profession?
Okay, so talk about rewards first. I think first and foremost is the personal satisfaction at the end of the day, you've seen a person that's transforming over a span of 6 weeks, coming with a walker and just seeing their spirits rise, and they're about to ditch that walker and they can take their own steps and walk on their own feet, the confidence returning to their faces, things like that. I mean, it just fills you with that satisfaction. And so I feel that as PT providers, we are pretty invaluable to the community, and we help tiny strides that people make into giant leaps, right? And it's pretty rewarding. And then the lifestyle, like I said again, it's you can embrace an active lifestyle. I think most PTs I've met are involved in some way or form, bettering themselves physically, challenging their bodies, and signing up for different things, but at the same time, we know how to do that safely. And if we are hurt, we can utilize our knowledge to help, either prevent injuries or treat them. So in that way, we choose the options that we know that there are no quick fixes, and that we need to work through some of these things to heal. And I like that we have that knowledge, and it's not just looking for a quick fix. And in the same way, we're able to do the same for our community, be it running, training, or like you do some training classes and running groups. So in much more than just among your friends and family, you can still extend some of that knowledge to your community. I think also as a PT, we have different roles that we can take on. We could be in the school system. We could be make fun and play out of our work if we, working with kids, and we could work with athletes, and that's exciting and very fast-paced environment. So there's just so many different options. We could be in the education, like I did. I was a teacher or a professor for a period of time, and research and stuff like that is like that's what you want to do. You can pursue that. So there's all that versatility, which I like about PT, and the private practice route, right? Which you're considering that. I might consider that later. Who knows, right? But there are options. I like that we have that option of choosing multiple different paths.
Mm.
When it comes to challenges, I think you and I know what they are. I don't like the paperwork. So that's there, I love the patient interaction, but the paperwork, I think I could do more. I could be more and get better at that, chip away at that, at that little obstacle.
Right.
But the other is, I guess, Medicare reimbursements are dwindling down. The 8% payment cuts, that's going to hit hard if it hasn't already. And insurance reimbursements are not super attractive at this time. So for the amount of time and effort we put into our job, I don't know that the reimbursements are there. And then direct access. I don't know what it is like in New York at this time, but Texas just about a year ago has allowed direct access, but there's still so much of limitations on what can be done and what we can make available. We couldn't go out to the public and say, hey, let's do some stretches, or this exercise is good for this, because it's still not as free. Our autonomy is pretty limited still. So hope to see some progress there pretty soon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, direct access in New York is pretty much, you can see a therapist for 30 days or 10 visits. And after that, you have to go to get a script from an MD. But yeah, anyone can come in, which I love that, because that just gives us that autonomy that I've been looking for and yearning for us to say, look, we went to PT school, we're doctors for a reason. We should be able to see anybody off the street for anything, as long as it's not like a fracture, or, those kind of things where we have to refer that out, because, we're not doing much for those things. But musculoskeletal wise, neuro wise, balance wise, yeah, we should be able to see anybody. And I do hope that as we continue to grow and continue to develop as a profession, that autonomy will continue.
Right.
Because, yeah, I mean, other professions have those things already. And I
Right.
think that we are just as skilled, if not even more skilled, when it comes to knowing what the body can do, should do, needs to do, etc. And
Exactly.
to help, like you said, for someone who
Yeah.
just maybe need some stretches or whatever else, which would be the easiest thing for us to show someone, those
Right.
things should not be limited.
Right.
Um,
So in
yes.
Australia, it's the opposite of that, right? So
Mm.
in Australia, you patients would walk into the therapist's office first. So walk into your physical therapist or physiotherapist or physio, as I call them, and then the physio then does the screening and determines if they need to go see a doctor or not. And so we had a lot more freedom. I think you could even request or order X-rays even back in the 20 years ago when I was there.
Oh,
So
yeah, love that.
very
Love
different.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. I mean, I
Mhm.
love for us to get either back to that or to that because that
That would be great.
that sounds, yeah, let's do that.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and I share with you some of the challenges because those are challenges that we see as well, and that's what in an instance for me, that's what's also encouraging me to say, well, maybe I can go out there and change. Everyone thinks they can go out there and change things, right? But
Hmm.
I'm thinking maybe I can go out there and change how healthcare is at least perceived from my end, or at least delivered from my end. That's why I've been talking about possibly doing private practice. And, as someone who is continuing to think about it,
Hmm.
I've been asking everyone who has either jumped into it or had a foot in it or has done anything in terms of research for it, you know, the best things to do or the worst things to do or the worst things not to do. And, I know you've had your foot in private practice and you've had experiences and as well. So my question for you now is, as an aspiring practice owner, as I am trying to be, what tips can you share um, about starting a practice, do's and don'ts?
Okay. So it's much like having a baby and raising a baby, this having this private practice, right? So we're all able to start that journey, and it's pacing. It's like a marathon, right? It's that one water stop to the next. Okay, pacing yourself. So define your goals from the outset. Make sure you leave room for some errors. Be kind to yourself. Invest time in learning about your own strengths. You need to know where you are good at and where you need to step back and let someone else take the lead. As a someone that's starting a business, I think it's easy to get pulled and sucked into. Well, I have to be there to do this and this and this, and before you know it, you're spread pretty thin and not doing any of those tasks to the best of what's needed to be done. So recognizing teammates that have their different strengths and letting some delegation happen, that needs to be there. um, I think for me that was the one of the don'ts, is I probably rushed into it a little bit. I did not take time to analyze. Although I was fairly successful, but I think I had over time started lacking confidence. And it wasn't a financial reason. It was just confidence in, can I do this? I started doubting myself, and that's where I started to crumble. And that kind of led to when the pandemic happened. I just didn't have the confidence to keep going. And there were other aspects that, personal life, things like that too, that was going on all at the same time, that made it a difficult situation. But I think if I'd planned and I had known my strength better, known who I am, what my limitations are, maybe I could have found my way through it. But at some point, we all experience failure, and you just have to move on and be able to, again, like I said, be kind to yourself and learn from it, and be ready for the next opportunity. Right? Um, I think having your own business, not only are you creating this, you also want to be able to protect what you're building, right? So you want to make sure you have the right legal support, which is very critical. You make sure you have good accountants. So all of the back end operations are going to be what defines the success also in a way for your business. Um, so I don't know if that helps, but I'm just, I guess, be realistic. It's not a kind and forgiving world. The world when you start into venture into owning a business, you have to protect what you're building, and so get after it, but make sure you're being realistic and keeping your feet on the ground.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty. I thank you for sharing. I think I am very altruistic in terms of uh, it's going to be okay. It's going to work out. It's going to be great. I think most people who are in the world of healthcare are somewhat positive in the sense that they think that everything's going to be okay. It's going to work out. But this
Yeah.
is different. This is business. This is finance. It's a whole different ball game. And I've said on the show before, we as clinicians learn about the body and how the body works. We learn about how to troubleshoot when things go awry and those kind of things with the hope that, if we do this, then this should happen. If you do press ups,
Hmm.
you can count on your radicular pain and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes
Right.
to business, it's not always that
Cut and
clean cut.
dry.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's so many other challenges that come with that. And like you said, no one had expected COVID. No one had expected that to be such a thing where literally if you go walk through Brooklyn or anywhere around the world, there are so many open storefronts now because just people had a hard time doing things. And,
Hmm.
conflate that with other things, like you said, personal issues or what have you. I think it's almost inevitable that at some point in time, those challenges can build up.
Yeah.
And you mentioned confidence being something that dwindled as you were going through these situations. For me, I think the thing that I'm looking at now is, do I have enough confidence to do it?
Yeah.
And my confidence, it wavers back and forth every time I look at financials and look at what's happening. But I've told myself and I've told my friends who are like, oh, what are you waiting for? Let's go.
Yeah.
My thing is I want to be in a place where um I'm confident enough to say that this is exactly where I need to be, and it can't jeopardize family. It can't jeopardize anything that's happening in terms of what the family wants to do or what we want to do. It needs to be a seamless transition. I know nothing's gonna be perfect because
Right.
there's gonna be challenges and there's gonna be things that you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I know all those things, um, but I'm not ready and willing to make a jump like that until I've done all the research, and that's why I talk to people like you and others who are doing it and have done it, etc. And I feel like I'm in a place where I know that I've done all I have to do to make the right decisions, and I have the team around me to make sure I can
Hmm.
get this thing done.
Hmm.
And it's for me, it's not about being fearful per se, because I'm not fearful, because I've been talking about this thing for a long time now. But it is just making sure that I am smart about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that like you said, having a team around you is crucial, and that's why I've been trying to do those things. And learning from you and others has been very helpful, just to to
Yeah.
to, to see that even you say, without the pandemic, who knows, you might still be just doing your own thing, and it's
Hmm.
very interesting that things like that do happen because it's gonna happen. Whether it's pandemic or whatever, challenges are
Right.
gonna come up. But I appreciate you sharing that. It does mean a lot. It does help me and others who are also trying to follow in your footsteps to make decisions that will be best for them and their families in the future. So
Right. My pleasure.
yeah. So listen, I know you're someone who is kind of like me in the sense that you're not just in the clinic treating and saying what to do, but you also go out there and do yourself, right? From various workouts that I see you posting or the races you've done in the past, I think a lot of the things now looking at your history and looking at your certifications as an OCS, right? So much more in terms of how to help others and to get them to a place where they can really just be the best for their sport, for the community, for their family. We have a number of runners who listen to this show and other sports enthusiasts, Spartan racers, etc., who listen to the show, and we always try to give tips on, how to stay healthy, how to train properly, uh, how to run better, those kind of things. And
Hmm.
I'm just curious if there are any tips that you want to share as an OCS, certified orthopedic specialist, as someone
Right.
who has a wealth of knowledge in the physical realm clinically and also in the classroom, right? About just how things are working in terms of research.
Right.
What are some tips that you may share with your clients, your athletes, or want to share with our running community and our fitness community right now on this podcast?
Well, I think some of these things have been discussed in the past, and I think I've heard some episodes on shoes and nutrition. So, I mean, there's so many different things to consider. I mean, you get out for a run, you had to consider the temperature, the time of day. Is there ice on the road? Is there traffic? Is there daylight? And women, especially running alone in the mornings, you just have to consider a lot more factors that come into play, your security and safety primarily. And then to add to that is the hydration and you're taking your salt. I find the salt pills help me quite a bit during a run. I don't know about everybody else, just the appropriate type of fuel. There's so much that goes into it. So, I mean, I don't know if you want me to elaborate on my routine but just touch on basically injury prevention. I think in a nutshell, it comes to don't do anything too drastic, too quick when you're hurting. So I find even as a therapist, I would fall into, oh, my back's hurting, let me do some stretching, and then I might overstretch and hurt worse. So sometimes even as a therapist, we have the knowledge, but when we go through it, it gives you whole nother viewpoint, and you go, wait a minute, that probably wasn't the best thing for it right at this time. So if you have something that's acute and inflamed, it's red hot and swollen, rest and ice. We don't need to do anything. Rest and ice, and avoid that activity. Try to piece it together by light stretching gradually, but no rush, and don't go looking into medical care right away because you could end up making things worse. So a week of rest, I think, from the activity that caused it. And then think about it. When was the last time you changed your shoes? How are the treads on those shoes? What do you think happened? Did you hydrate enough? Maybe did you overtrain? Maybe you didn't give yourself time to warm up. So things of that nature, just take a step back and analyze. And I feel that flexibility goes a long way, but if you're acutely injured, maybe stretching is not the right thing to do at that point in time.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think a lot of people get caught up in well, I have a race, so I have to go do it. I have to get this done. And they kind of ignore the small things. And especially when we talk about marathon training and other races where you're training literally for an 18-week period, and we get so fixated on, I have to go run 20 miles today, so I have to just gut through it. And that whole no pain, no gain thing, which everyone kind of says, which is true in some instances, but in sometimes it's like, no. If there is pain, there is no gain. So you can't do anything for a little bit. I do think the hard part, like you said, is taking that week. And I do think some people have a hard time thinking that taking that week off is going to be helpful. They see it as taking a week off is going to be a setback. So if you really want to take a week off and rest, then you really can't progress any further because you're going to hurt yourself even more. So yeah, I think that's probably great advice. And like you said, all the other things we talked about on the show already about nutrition and treads and what have you. But I think the important thing you said just now is really just being able to recognize how your body's feeling and adapting to that and giving it the proper stretching or ice that it needs to recuperate. I think a lot of people get caught in that, oh, I'll just push through it and it'll be fine. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just need to really just turn it down for a little bit.
From my own experience, I would say it has not worked well. So pushing through is something that, we all innately, we want to do that. We won't say, well, this is not really happening. I should be fine. I just push through this. And then the next thing you know, you go a couple more miles and something else fails. And then another, body part starts to hurt. And then you finally go, well, this is not getting any better. So before we get to that point, I think as soon as you sense that something's not right, don't push it. Your body's trying to heal. Your body is resilient. You just have to give it time to recover.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love the fact that people can look up things online to see what's going on, but I also hate the fact that people can do that because then you start searching for, oh, I think I have this. I think I have this. And people always, I'm sure they come to you as well, saying, I think I have this. And you're like, you don't. And like, all you need to do, just go
Right,
home and just ice and stretch a little bit, and I'm sure you're gonna be fine.
right.
Broke my leg. No, you didn't. You just got to go, So
Yeah.
what are your tips for your patients when they come to you and they have these audacious thoughts about what may have happened to them, and they're going online and looking up things online, and they're looking for ways to treat certain things, which may be as simple as like shin splints or an itis of some sort. These things that to us it makes sense, and we can just kind of say, well, you need to just take care of that. But for them, they think it's just the worst thing in the world. What are
Mhm.
your tips to give them, I guess, clarity on those things and guidance on how to change their training or change their programs to make sure that they can keep an eye on those things so they don't get worse in the future?
Um, my tips on that, I think, it's multiple aspects of it. One is if usually if I have someone that comes in and says, "Well, I Googled this," I would try to explain to them after I've done my assessment and try to kind of demonstrate to them that this does not fit with this picture that you're presenting. And usually most patients come around and they'll laugh it off. It's like, yeah, I know, I probably shouldn't have Googled that. And, they come around. And I think a lot of times my patients, when they buy into and understand that, oh, this is what I can do to help, they're usually pretty, I guess, on with the program, and then they will do what's needed. And a lot of the times, I'm always of the mentality now after 20 years of working. But well, when I started, I was, yes, let's do this, let's hit it with this, and some aggressive stretching, and then you're just going to do some hops and all this stuff, and we're going to fix it, and you're going to be strong and good to go. Well, you might end up set back, having set that patient back, because then they're not able to come in for the next 2-3 days because they're in a lot of pain, or the doctor said they don't need physical therapy for a little bit. PT, we need to put a break on physical therapy. And so over the years, I've just kind of stepped back a little bit and recognized kind of the early signs of pain and inflammation and what's going on, what stage of healing is this person in? Is this appropriate to push at this point, or do they just need rest and ice, or do they need a little more aggressive approach, and do they need eccentric loading, or are they ready to do their jumps, and or is it just time to back off? So I think depending on what I'm presented with, I think it could range from just do nothing, let's just ice it 3-4 times a day. And they
Yeah.
come back and go, wow, you're a miracle worker. You did great. I mean, I say, well, okay, you're welcome. I mean, so, it's like, wow, how did you fix me? So, well, no, you did, because you put ice on it and you
Right.
calmed the inflammation. You were kind to your body.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so fun sharing that information with them because they're so excited about it. But you're like, yeah, it's just science. So we're just
Right.
gonna rock with it. But yeah. So and all these things that you're saying tip wise have been helpful for others. I'm sure you apply them to yourself because you've done races, you've done, competitions and what have you. And as someone who does these things as well, I always look back and I say, man, I've learned so much about myself from this or from that. Looking back at all the things you've done, the races you've done, the challenges you've set up to do and to challenge yourself. What's the greatest thing you've learned about yourself during any of those experiences, whether they've been races or challenges or physical feats, etc.?
Okay. So it was mostly the marathons that I had kind of fallen into in a way. But once I started the training, I realized it's such a test of the endurance of the mind, your body, your spirit. And I guess I've learned that I am pretty resilient, and I'm able to get in a zone, and I have a place to escape, and I'm just locked into that moment, And at times when there is a lot of negativity, which is easy to do, right? For all of us, we get that negativity takes over our thoughts. And I've just learned ways to bring myself into the present. And the running has helped me with that because it was just one foot after the other. You know, the race is long. You still got 20 miles to go, or you've got 10 miles to finish, you know? And so just kind of keeping the eyes on the prize and just going. So it could be something in the future that I'm looking at. Okay, that finish line is around the corner. I just need to keep one foot in front of the other. So in the pandemic year, like I said, I saw the business shut down. I lost what I had created and I had failed. Prior to that, that year before, I'd had a divorce, and now the teenagers are sitting at home in this pandemic year, virtual school, and I'm scurrying around to find a job in the middle of a pandemic. And my daughter develops an illness, and all of this responsibilities all of a sudden just was on me, right? The house, the kids, their health, our finances. And it was very hard. And I think training the way I have kept me going because I knew I needed to be strong for myself. I am here by myself as part of my family's all in New York, and I just had to do it, you know. And so it was just, you know, convincing myself there is an end to this, there is a finish line, and we just had to have faith, and it's going to manifest, you know. We're going to make it there. And so a lot of people gave up or gave in, but I think with the help of the training, I was able to be consistent and get through those times. I had COVID twice. So the second time was January this year. And then 2 weeks after that second incident or the episode, I ran a half marathon. Okay. And so I had signed up for this race, and I'm said, no, I'm not, you know, I'm not sitting out. I wanted to do this because it was 2 years of not doing a single race. And this was the one I signed up for. I had COVID. I said, no, I'm still going to practice, you know, to train. I'm training, and I finished. I thought it's going to be a run, walk, and a crawl. You know, it's going to take 3 hours or more, but I finished in 2 hours and 10. And I don't think I stopped running. So it was just exhilarating to know that I could come out of COVID and prove to myself that I can do anything that I put my mind to. So not bragging, but I think all of us have that ability to conquer our biggest obstacles. And so I think we should just not stand in our own way and keep pushing.
Absolutely, that's inspiring by itself. Coming out of COVID, running 210, that's great. And yeah, you know, I love the running community. I love the running culture. I love races in general because it just lets you know that again, everybody has their issues, their challenges, their failures. But everyone who signed up for those races has one goal in mind, and the goal is to get from the start to the finish. And no matter what's going on, you know, I always say when we have our practices and even our races, when the race is over, I say, okay, back to reality. Because those races become like a time warp where nothing matters. Like all the things you're going through, all the stress that you may have been experiencing, all the things that you know you have to go back to for that one moment in time, for those 2 hours and 10 minutes of that day, it doesn't matter.
It's just your time.
That's it. You're going out there, you're doing your thing, you're in the zone, like you said, and nothing matters except for the race you're running and those around you and the feeling you have during that thing and the drive that you remember in training for that thing, no matter what's going on, whether it was COVID or something that's on your mind, for those 2 hours and 10 minutes, nothing else mattered except for finishing that goal. And I love that. And I just feel like it just gives you, you can probably relate, just gives you a sense of, okay, when the race is over, I have now the courage and the inspiration and the drive to go back and face all the things that I know I have to face because I got through this thing that I had to get through. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that's why I run. That's why I do these things. And I said, yeah, after
absolutely.
maybe it's gonna be done, but like you said, these things continue just to go on, and it's something that just drives you as a person and as an individual and as a clinician and as
Yeah,
a human being. So,
yeah.
you know, I salute you for being as resilient as you have been through all these things to continue to go out there and run.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been my outlet to be able to do that. That is the one thing I knew. I can train for it and I can see the results,
Yeah.
provided I'm not injured. But
Right.
yes, as
Exactly.
long as I do
Exactly.
it cautiously and safely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, as clinicians, I always ask because I'm curious how you balance this thing, right? You're out there doing these races for yourself. You're raising two kids. You have a job where you are a manager. You're holding things down, and you're still trying to get your fitness life in there at the same time. How do you balance this life you created? Um, Family, work, fitness, and is this something that you stress with your patients? I think a lot of people talk to their patients about, oh, you have to go up there and be active, but you know, it's easy for someone to just go out there and say it, but you're actually doing it. So,
Right.
how do you balance these things
Right.
and make sure that you keep it all going together well?
Right. So I think it's exactly about 10 years ago that I started running. And it was not something that was innate for me, this love of running. I think some events in my life that again led me to go, where I was in a place where I felt helpless or, hopeless in a way. And I said, this is not going to be me. I have to do something. And so I showed up. One of the things that happened at the time was I ended up losing one of my friends' pet who was pet sitting, and he took off as I was distracted with my 4-year-old, and we couldn't find him. And so I became, very much. I obviously felt very responsible and terrible over this, and so um, I just had to do something, and so I had started joining a running group and listening to stories of people with their own stories and their own fun stories, inspiring stories. It helped me get that endurance slowly built up. So when I was starting this marathon goal in my mind, it was in 2012, and I started training in August. I was just running maybe 3 miles a week. 3 miles 3 times a week. And then once I started with the running group, pretty soon after, the golden retriever puppy was found and everything, reunited with his family. I know, so that was a good story. And I could have said, "Oh, good, we're done. I can stop running now." But I had already just started to see how this was helping me because I started to appreciate the good things that just being out there, being active, getting fresh air, interacting with people, that was doing some good for me. And so pretty soon 5 miles became 10 and 14 and 20. And then by 2012 I did the Dallas Marathon, and not in the best shape. I was, hit the wall at mile 19, whatever, but I finished and I was just, so elated to do that. And so I think I remember through that experience that we had three things that helped. One is consistency. So consistently getting up, 5 in the morning, 3 times a week, putting those shoes on and going, okay, it's cold outside, it's dark outside. I don't want to get out of bed, but trying to say, well, this is just show up, just get out there. And so you're a sum total of your habits, right? So you just start to build a good habit. Once you consistently do that for a few weeks, next thing you know, you can't do without it. So it just became a habit. And so no matter what, I was getting out there and coming home feeling much better than I did when I left. And finally ran a marathon in 2014 in the rain. Again, tackled the Dallas Marathon. I did a 9:48 pace and finished in 4 hours and 16 minutes. So that was my best. And I don't know if I'll ever do that again, but I hope to definitely try, that was consistency at that time that helped me with that. And then being in good company, right? So having positive people, having people passionate about your goal just as much as they're supportive of you as well, and wanted to offer their help. So you're just surrounding yourself with people that had positivity and are passionate about running or the same cause as you are, that helped. And so if you have people that doubt you, I would say time to move on and find people that will, motivate you and fill you with that positivity to accomplish what you're setting out to do. So that helped. Crew, you should have a good support crew. So teamwork again comes into play here. You cannot do that on your own. You need to have we need to have our spouse or our family members, taking care of everything else in the meantime that you're going out there training for 4 and 5 hours. And when you come back, you and I know we're exhausted. Not much else happens that day. So just having that kind of support system. And I had a good network of friends and family that would help do that. Say, hey, we'll take care of the kids. You do what you need to do,
Yeah.
So those were the things that helped.
Yeah, that's all spot on. That's all spot on. That is basically the journey.
Yeah.
And as trying as it is, it's so rewarding. And
Yep.
my next question for you is be more today means a lot of things, to a lot of people. You're basically saying all the things that you're being more with. And I'm curious, when you hear the phrase be more today, given all you shared about your running experiences and your professional life and career and your aspirations for where you want to be and where you've been, what does that phrase be more today mean to you?
So I guess I'd be lying if I said I woke up every day with that attitude. Uh, I think it takes intentional thought and commitment to allow that phrase to define the reality of your life. I think the phrase calls to action, a certain amount of boldness to step out in faith and get doing. Just like running a race is running from that one water stop to the next. This phrase is a powerful call to transform your dreams into reality. And by doing a little more each day, chip away little by little towards achieving that goal, whatever it is for all of us.
Yeah, that's big. That's big. Nisha Mathews, what's next for you on the docket? What's planned for this year? What are we doing? It's already May,
Gosh.
about to be June. So what are we doing for the rest of this year?
Oh,
What's going
I
on?
think I've been burning a few brain cells every day, wondering that same thing. I love travel, and the world's starting to open up. I want to learn. I don't know what yet, and I want to keep advancing. I've always had that drive to do more, to be going places, go forward, and right now I have again 2 wonderful teenage kiddos, and they are also wanting the same for themselves, right? So they're kind of getting into that phase where they want to travel, they want to explore, and they want to learn about this world they're in. And so yeah, I'm not sure right now, so I think I should let them take that turn now and launch them, and make sure that I can be here to guide them through, and then start to focus on me. But I can certainly start to plan what I will be doing in 2 or 3 years from now. And so in the meantime, I'm working as a center manager for Baylor. I love working with my colleagues, my coworkers, my patients, and hopefully God's plan will be revealed soon.
Awesome. That sounds really exciting. Well, where can people follow you on social media or otherwise, or even by email, if you don't mind?
Okay, so I'm an old school therapist. I don't have professional Instagram or Twitter or what have you. I do plan to do that in the future. Right at this time, not yet, but that's something I definitely want to consider doing. I think it'll be useful for the community that I'm in, to have therapists like with a background that's a varied background. So just need to work that out. In the meantime, you can reach out to me on my email. It's my full name, Nisha Mathews, Mathews 117 at gmail.com.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
Nisha Mathews, we appreciate you so much. Dr. Mathews, we appreciate you so much. It's really been fun connecting with you again. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the future you're going to be cultivating down there. And I'm excited that you are moving forward with new beginnings. I appreciate you being on the show today. And it's good to catch up. So thank you so much for making number 97 one for the books. It is now it's a hit because you're on the show. I
Woohoo!
really
That's
appreciate it.
fantastic.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so much, Sean. Always wonderful to see you. I wish you all the best, and let's stay in touch.
Yes, absolutely. And folks, don't forget the quote from today. No matter the person or the situation, there's always a beginning, a day one. Be courageous and starting over and trying again. This day could be the day that changes everything. You heard Dr. Mathews talk about her ups and her downs. She's continued to run this race and do it well. And no one knows what's happening tomorrow. We all talk about what we want to do. We make plans for these things, but as we've seen in Texas and we've seen around the world, tomorrow's not promised to anyone. So go out there, make the most of it, be courageous, get out of your own heads. Let's continue to be better, be more, be great, and continue to keep running these races. Continue to run the race of life. And I appreciate her words and her story, her experiences, and I hope you did too. As always, follow us, BeMoreToday.com for my book. The swag store is open, and our podcast again. 20,000 downloads, 62 countries. Continue to go out there and just subscribe to us on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platforms. And if you want to send us thoughts, you can email Nisha directly or me at Dr. Sean at BeMoreToday.com or any of our social media platforms, Be More Today PT or the Be More Today show. As I always say, folks, have a good day, have a good night, have a great life, and continue to take your steps greatest to be the best version of you. We will see you next week.